Everyone, in just a second, I'm going to be introducing author Jennifer Haupt, and we're going to be talking about her debut novel, In the Shadow of 10,000 Hills. And it came out April 1st. It is about Rwanda, and it is really good. Historical fiction, debut novel. I actually read it like two or three times through, and because Jennifer and I kept like scheduling to talk, and then things didn't work out with our schedule, and so I'd read it again, and but I am so happy I did. It is an amazing book. Everyone, here is Jennifer.
Hi, everyone. I am so excited because I am speaking with author Jennifer Haupt, and we're talking about her novel, In the Shadow of 10,000 Hills. It was released April 1st, and I am so happy that we finally connected, Jennifer.
Me too.
Yeah, because we'd been postponing, like we kept trying to connect. I've read this book, I think, like 3 times.
Oh, my goodness.
Just to keep myself up on it. I would just read it, and then I'd read it again, to refresh my memory, and because we'd like plan it for a week or two, and then I'm like, okay, well, let me just reread this and make sure I'm fresh on it. And so it's been really good. It's
well, I
been
hope,
really beneficial.
I hope you didn't have, too many spoiler alerts. Like the third time, you must have been like, okay, I know what's happening.
Yeah,
And,
I did. It didn't. I felt like I kept learning more. It's like even like a movie that you watch over again, it's going to happen, but it's the getting there. And with this book, what I thought that you did so beautifully was make me feel like I've been to Africa. Like I knew, like before I even looked up to see if you had, I knew you had, because there was no way you could write like you did without actually having been there. And it was just so beautiful. Like I want to go there. I really do. Like it made me be like, I want to go there. I want to see that. I mean, it sounds so incredibly beautiful.
Yeah, Rwanda is gorgeous, and the people there are just amazing. And that's one reason I wanted to write this book, is because I think people feel like when they think of Rwanda, they think of genocide, and they think of it as a scary place, and it's really a beautiful place. And there is the aspect of the genocide that is woven into the culture, but I think that it's important to visit other places that have culture where death and grief and so forth are not things that we put aside. They're things that are just part of life.
Yeah, and, I didn't know a lot about Rwanda back in the day when everything was happening. And then that book that came out was called Left to Tell. It was in 2006.
Yes.
And it opened my eye. It was like, what? I was like, what? What is going on? Why didn't we do something? Like, I did not understand how something like that could have happened, and I didn't know about it. Like, it was just baffling to me, because I'm not somebody that was sheltered that much. And did you find that? Did you find that there are people here that really didn't happen?
Yeah, that was surprising to me. A lot of my reviews on Goodreads are people who say, I didn't know anything about the genocide. I had no idea. And then there's also people who say, I didn't want to read about the genocide, but then when I read the story and realized it was about relationships and there's love stories, and it's about it's about a lot of different things, and the genocide is just part of that. One of my goals with writing the book was really giving American women in particular, a way into this very different world, and a way into not just learning about the genocide, but also connecting with people in this different culture. So that's one reason why 3 of my main characters are Americans, and they are, and 2 of them are white, and one of them is black, and then the other main character is Rwandan. So I have like different people from different backgrounds and different cultures who all come together as a family against the backdrop of post-genocide Rwanda.
Absolutely. I mean, this book is not about the genocide. I mean, I'd read that other book, so I knew a little bit more about it, but this is, after, and you just kind of weave it into their story, which I thought you did such a great job with. like what happens after. It's like, you always, you then read about what did happen, but this isn't about what happened. This is about the families after and everybody coming together. And I love the relationship part of this story. It was so beautiful. All of them were different. You had so many different relationships and marriages and, and Rachel going through what she went through, losing a baby in the beginning of the book. She loses a child and she starts looking for her father. And I couldn't decide. Different parts of the book, I'm like, I love Lillian? And I'm like, I love Rachel. I just love them both.
I was like that when I was writing it because it started out as a story of Rachel Shepard, who's a white middle-class woman like me, age 38, who goes to find her father who had disappeared when she was 8 years old. And he was a photographer, and she found out through some research of some of his photos that he had taken pictures of this woman, Lillian, during the civil rights era in Atlanta. And so the story of her going over to connect with her father's, what turns out to be her father's mistress, was the beginning of the story. And then I got so interested in Lillian's story of growing up during the civil rights era in the 60s and having an interracial relationship with Rachel's father, and then going to Africa after Martin Luther King was murdered because she's disillusioned with the civil rights movement. I became so interested in that she became the main story for a while. So I really had to, it really is both Rachel and Lillian's stories connected by Rachel's father.
Mm. Is this your debut novel?
Yes, it is.
I thought so. I wanted to, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, I kept looking and I'm like, she had to have written other, I know you've written other things, but I just couldn't believe it was a debut novel for you.
Well, I was a journalist for 15 years before I went to Rwanda. And when I went to Rwanda and I discovered all these stories, not just of genocide survivors, but also of aid workers and really honestly partly my own story, I just wanted to tell all different worldviews really of finding grace, a kind of grace when there's no forgiveness. And so, and it took me a long time to figure out how to write fiction. It took me probably 7 years. And at one point I put this novel aside and I wrote another novel for 2 years. And I really sharpened my skills and took those back to my first novel. And now I'm going back to my second novel and sharpening that. So it's really helped me going back and forth between two novels.
Is that a next one historical fiction also?
Well, it takes place in the early 90s in Seattle, part of it. And so I guess now that is historical fiction.
I think as long as you put a date and a place by it, it's historical fiction.
Yeah. And also, honestly, historical fiction is kind of a woman's thing where, women are kind of put in that category. So, but that's kind of another discussion. But, so I would say the second one is not necessarily historical fiction. I really didn't think of this as historical fiction when I wrote it, but it is.
Yeah, well, it definitely, even when it doesn't have to go back that far, and it's already considered historical fiction. So, but I love historical fiction. I love learning things more. I always look at it as like I'm learning things. I'm learning about different places and different times and how it affected people. And I thought you did a great job with that, just learning Lillian's background and then what she does with her life. And it's such a great story. It really is. And I don't know how difficult it was for you to weave these two stories together like this, but it looked easy.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, it was pretty difficult because I've got 5 different points of view. So Lillian's point of view, Rachel's point of view, Rachel's father, Henry's point of view, Nadine, who is, as you know, a 19-year-old Rwandan woman who is has to testify at a community trial against these boys who are her former neighbors. And then Rachel's love interest, Tucker, who's a doctor who lived on Lillian's farm. So there's 5 different points of view, and all these people are connected to the genocide and in some way, and all these people are struggling with not just grief, but also trying to learn to love again, and also trying to find some kind of personal peace.
Yeah, I love at the end of your book, you did a question and answer, and how you said that when you were in Rwanda, like you felt like it was about grief and love. That, that's the sense you got there.
It's really, to me, Rwanda is such a small country, and the 2 tribes there, the Hutus and the Tutsis, I mean, if you go back far enough, they are related, and so the country is really like one big family in a way. And so I started thinking a lot about how the strands of grief and love intertwine to create family. And that's something that I thought a lot about while writing this book.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can't wait for your next book. I can tell you that. I cannot wait to read your next book. But I wanted to help Rachel. I felt like I kept wanting to help her, and
me too.
with her marriage. In the beginning, I was like, because she wasn't getting what she needed, and I wanted to help her, to work through her grief, and I don't know, I just wanted to mother her a lot.
Well, she needed a mother, and Lillian was, I would say, not a mother to her at first, by any means. Lillian was not at all excited to see Henry Shepard's daughter show up. But I think Lillian becomes the mother figure that Rachel has wanted. And so that relationship I really like a lot. And then Nadine becomes somewhat like Rachel's sister. Nadine, as you know, is Lillian's adopted daughter whose family died during the genocide. And so it's the relationship between those 3 women was really complex to develop, but it was also really satisfying because they're all from such different backgrounds and such different, time periods and generations, and they all bond over really the search for family and becoming a family.
Well, everybody, while we're talking, everyone is looking at the cover, and I'm looking at the cover because I pulled it up. And I wanted to ask you, so the 10,000 Hills, is that what they call Rwanda? I mean, is that...
Yeah, it's called the land. Yeah, it's called the Land of 10,000 Hills. And so the title, In the Shadow of 10,000 Hills, comes from, at one point in the book, Rachel asks Tucker, the doctor who lives at Lillian's farm, how people can still believe in God after the genocide. And he tells her there's a story about how God watches over Africa, but during the genocide, God went into the valley because she was so sad about what humans were doing. And so that's why I called it In the Shadow of 10,000 Hills.
I love that. I highlighted that. Just so you know, I took that section and highlighted it because I thought it kind of made me, tear up. And, but as I look at the picture, I'm like, I don't know what I think of how Africa looks. I mean, you hear about their sunrises and their sunsets and, different things like that, but I didn't even realize that part of the continent was that hill that had that many hills. And it looks green, and
it's very green. It's very green, and so it's beautiful. The hills are tiered, and they're farmed, and so they've got tiers of vegetables and trees and so forth, and they're green, and it's beautiful. There's a lot of reds and browns because there's lots of clay in the land, and then the Virunga Mountains are volcanoes. And they were volcanoes, and that's where the mountain gorillas live. So it was really fun going into the mountains and looking for gorillas with a guide. And I remember one of the highlights of my trip was when this you said it was a teenage gorilla, came up to me and was like pulling on my rain pants because I was wearing these purple rain pants. and you aren't supposed to obviously go up to the gorillas. They are wild, and normally they run away, but a lot of them just really aren't afraid of people, and this one certainly wasn't. So that was an experience that I really will never forget.
Yeah, and I didn't realize because I'd looked it up. Rwanda is kind of in the center, of Africa, near the equator, and it looks like it's right by Lake Victoria. And that's why I was like, okay, so it's on the equator, but because of the hills, like it's all green because it's high enough, I guess, that it's not desert, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've been to Kenya, and there's Mount Kenya there, but it's basically a lot flatter, like the Serengeti in Kenya and in Tanzania, where a lot of the animals, there's tons of animals there. And that's all, a lot of it's desert, a lot of it's part of the year, and it's flat, and you can see animals for just, a long way ahead of time. So, yeah, so it's different.
Wow. Well, it sounds, I'm telling you, it sounds absolutely beautiful. I mean, I thought you described, I've read a couple of books on Africa, but I thought the way you described it, it was just, your writing was just, it was like, it was right there, that's why I could read it so many times. So.
Well, I recommend everyone reads it 3 times at least. So.
There you go. There you go. Well, I am so happy we got to talk about this. I can't wait. Do you have a date for your next book?
I don't. I have a date for finishing it and getting it to my agent, but that's about it right now.
Okay.
And it makes me sad because now I've lived with these people for so long and I really love them. And now I have to, let go of them. So, so then I'm going to have to start another novel, which I just kind of dread. Because the next one is really, really going to be hard. I know what it's going to be, and it's just going to be, so...
well, you must be so excited the way everybody's loving this book. I saw this cover all over the place. I mean, it's getting such good reception. And for a debut novel, that's why I kept looking. And I'm like, yes, this is her debut novel. And it's amazing. So you must just be thrilled about that.
I am, because I wasn't sure how people would accept this book, since so much of it, I mean, is, takes place during the genocide and the aftermath. And so, but people have been really receptive. And like I said, even Goodreads, where people, a lot of authors are like, oh, don't look at Goodreads because you'll get really depressed or whatever with your reviews. But I only have a couple of, 1 stars, and those reviews are just like, I look at them and go, I'm really sorry. But both of them are really good, so I'm happy.
Right. You just say, I'm really sorry, but not sorry, because when I don't read reviews most of the time, but when I do and I see a 1 star, I think, did you really have to write that? I mean, is that really relevant? It doesn't, most of the time it's not, and they didn't read it, and so I really don't pay attention to them at all. Especially when I've read the book and I know, so it's just their opinion. But anyway, thank you so much, Jennifer. I will have all of her links underneath this video, and especially the link to the book. All you got to do is press on it. It'll take you right to the book, and you hit the 1 click, and it's yours. So everybody go get her book, and you know where to find me when the next one comes out, because I'd love to read it.
I will send you a galley for sure.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Have a great night.
You too. Thank you, Michelle.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Jennifer and I talk about her book. Oh my gosh, guys, I said I've read it 3 times. Go get it. It is such a great book, especially if you like historical fiction about Africa. You will love it. She did such a good job. So anyway, thank you for listening, and thank you, Jennifer. And all of her links are right underneath here. You can go hit the book link right to Amazon and buy it. And thanks.